Hi, my name is Jake, and I am a bookish drummer. Welcome back to episode 4 of Off-Topic Thursday. For this video, I will be discussing my top 31 horror movies of all time. Now, to keep this video from being like 2 hours long, because 31 is a lot to talk about, I'm going to briefly touch on 20 of those, and then I'll discuss my top 10 in further detail. I have a tie for the number 10 spot, so technically top 11, if you will. But anyway, I love horror movies. I grew up watching horror movies from a very young age. My dad basically let me watch anything that I wanted to, so I got very desensitized at a very young age. But basically, I grew up watching horror movies. I love them still to this day. I don't get to watch them a lot because Stacy, my wife, isn't the biggest fan of horror movies, but horror movies are definitely a big part of who I am. So it is Halloween, 31 days in October. I'd love to talk about 31 of my favorite horror movies / franchises. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and jump right into it. So before I get to my top 10, I'm just going to quickly rattle off some of my favorite horror movies that didn't quite make the top 10 list. So we've got The Blob, the 1988 version, I believe. The very first rated R movie that I saw as a kid. The Saw movies. I don't really love going back to watch those, but definitely a big part of me growing up was going to the theaters and watching those. Silence of the Lambs, fantastic one. Friday the 13th, some great movies, some not great movies in that franchise. Evil Dead, very fun. Alien, super great sci-fi horror movie. Scream, very fun, sort of meta horror movie, if you will. One of the better slashers. You've got Jaws, obviously a great classic. Another great classic would be Black Christmas. A newer one, which is the sequel to one of my favorites, coming up probably in the top 10 list, possibly, is Dr. Sleep. Instant classic for me. You've got The Fly, obviously the Jeff Goldblum version. Super great movie. Poltergeist, another great classic. Child's Play, one of my favorite slasher series. Chucky's definitely one of my favorites. The Invisible Man, which I believe was the last movie that I got to see before, 2020. That movie was great as well. And I actually own some of these on DVDs. I was looking through a lot of these and I'm missing some. I don't know where they are, but I do own some of these. We have The Thing, which, is right outside my top 10. Great. The Sixth Sense, maybe arguably not like a horror movie, but I consider it a horror movie. Fantastic. Cujo, another great Stephen King movie. And I'm trying not to fill this list with like a bunch of Stephen King movies, but he obviously has a lot. Dawn of the Dead, specifically the 2004 remake, probably the best horror remake of all time. Debatable. We have The Omen, the OG 1976 version. Fantastic. And then this is kind of a deep cut. Maybe y'all don't know. Robin Williams did a horror movie called 1 Hour Photo. This one is messed up, but very underrated horror gem. And then I know I said I was going to have 31, but I do have 2 honorable mentions. They're not in the top 31 simply because I've watched them once and that's enough. But The Eyes of Her Mother, one of the most disturbing movies I've ever seen. Also, Speak No Evil, the original Danish version. The ending to this movie literally had my jaw on the floor. Like, that's an expression, but like, I saw the last scene and I was just like, so those 2 movies are very disturbing. Seen them once, that's enough, but these other movies are just outside my top 10 and my top 31 horror movies of all time. But now we're going to crack down and look at my top 10 list, which is technically a top 11 list, but leave me alone. This was hard. So coming in at a tie for the number 10 spot, very fitting. They're both slasher movies, probably some of my favorite slasher movies of all time. Very hard to choose between the 2, so I decided let's just put them both in the top 10 here. Cheating a little bit, but it's my list, so leave me alone. So tied for number 10, we have Halloween and Nightmare on Elm Street. I would probably say Halloween 2 might be a little bit better than Halloween, but I still love both of those. And the sequels, they're not as good, but they're still fun to go back and watch. And then obviously, Nightmare on Elm Street, probably the first one is the best, but also the third one is really good. And then the sequels are very hit or miss, but obviously Michael Myers and Freddy Krueger, some of the most iconic horror movie villains and icons ever made into movies. Come on, Jake. But anyway, I grew up on these movies. Like, we would get them from Blockbuster, or I had a local movie scene that I would go rent movies from, but just constantly getting Halloween and all the sequels, Nightmare on Elm Street and all those sequels. Grew up religiously watching these movies. Very fun. And yeah, Halloween, I think, might have the slight edge just because of the soundtrack. The soundtrack is amazing by John Carpenter. But either way, some of my favorite slashers of all time. Very hard to choose between the two, so they're locked in, tied at the number 10 spot. And coming in at the number 9 spot, we have another Stephen King movie. This one I made Stacy, my wife, watch for the first time, and she liked it, didn't love it, but I'm talking, of course, about Misery. And Misery, if you guys know from my Stephen King content, is my second favorite Stephen King book of all time, and I think it's one of the better Stephen King adaptations. I think Kathy Bates playing Annie Wilkes is one of the better horror movie performances of all time. She did win an Oscar for it, which is rare for horror movies, so she did a fantastic job. And overall, I think Rob Reiner, who is just a very, like, his filmography is very weird, because he did Misery, but he also did The Princess Bride and When Harry Met Sally, so, like, he's all over the place with movies, but he did a very fantastic job of adapting this Stephen King horror book. I think I do like the book a little bit better. I think it's definitely the scariest book that I've ever read, and the movie is very scary as well, but the book is a little bit better. But anyway, Misery, the movie is fantastic. If you haven't seen it, especially if you've read the book and you haven't seen the movie yet, go watch it. It's very chilling. I almost said Annie Wilkes, but Kathy Bates playing Annie Wilkes does an amazing job. So with all that being said, Misery comes in at the number 9 spot on the list. In number 8 on the list, maybe slightly a horror comedy, if you will. It's also not like a straight movie. It's more like an anthology. It's got like 5 different segments in it. You guys might know what I'm talking about. It's Creepshow. And speaking of Stephen King, he is involved in this movie. If you haven't seen it yet, I won't spoil how or why, but Stephen King is related to this, and it's one that I grew up watching, and it's always been one of my favorites to go back and rewatch. It's based loosely on horror comics that the director, George Romero, and Stephen King read when they were younger, so it does have kind of that weird gimmicky comic book feel to it, but I think that adds to the fun of the movie. It's got 5 different segments. Some are better than others, but they're all very worth watching, and it's horror comedy, so it's not really like straight, like, this movie isn't scary, at least in my opinion, but it's a very fun horror movie to go back and watch again and again. So for all that reason, number 8 on the list is Creepshow. Number 7 on my list is definitely another childhood favorite that I got to watch when I was very young as well, because it was actually PG-13. Now, normally I don't love PG-13 horror movies. There's some that I like The Sixth Sense is also very good, but normally, like, if you're gonna watch a horror movie, it's gotta be rated R, right? But Tremors, probably the best PG-13 horror movie ever made, at least in my opinion. This movie kicks a lot of ass. If you guys don't know what it's basically about this very small town in the desert who realizes that there's these underground monsters that are starting to terrorize the town and kill people. It's really fun. It's really great. It's got a lot of great one-liners in it, and it's Kevin Bacon, and it's just a very fun horror movie. It's got some pretty gnarly kills in it too, and the monsters themselves just look very good. This is from 1990. Got some cool animatronic stuff happening, and It's just one that I've watched when I was super young because I was able to watch it because it wasn't rated R. Not that I wasn't also like watching rated R movies when I was super young, but Tremors, very fun movie, and it's one that I love to go back to again and again. The sequels are also worth watching, but not quite as good as the first one. But yeah, Tremors definitely deserves to be on this list at number 7. So for number 6, I actually owned the movie, and for a lot of these, I thought I owned most of these. There's one missing from my top 5, which makes me very sad because it's one of my all-time favorites, obviously. So I don't know where the hell all these movies went, but anyway, number 6 on the list, a bit of a deep cut. A lot of y'all might not have heard of this movie or have seen it, but I have a fun story about this movie. It's called Hatchet. It's got a glare on it, but Hatchet, very low budget horror movie that came out in like 2006. So when I was like 12 or 13. This one was fun because me and my dad let me watch all these crazy horror movies. We actually went to the midnight premiere of it at our local like AMC theater. It was like a Thursday night, like 10 o'clock. Empty, except for us two. So basically we got a free screening of this movie, which kind of made it a bit more fun experience. But man, this movie, again, it's got some comedy elements to it, but it's basically just a great slasher movie about these kids who go to Mardi Gras and they get kind of wrapped up in this thing about Hatchet, who's this local legend killer. And the kills in this movie are so memorable and so off the wall. It's just a great time. If you love slasher movies and you haven't checked this one out, definitely check it out because it's worth it. And I haven't seen it in a while, so maybe it won't hold up quite as well, but I think it will because it was just a really fun time. It doesn't take itself too seriously, and it's just a really fun slasher. So just missed my top 5, but number 6 on the list has to go to Hatchet. Number 5 on the list, cracking into my top 5 here, we have a bit of a newer pick. I think this came out maybe like 10 years ago. God, when did this movie come out? Yeah, this movie came out 10 years ago, man. But anyway, this movie, it's a bit of a newer movie. It's super good. It's definitely got a very dreary atmosphere, and it's just a super creepy movie, and that would be The Witch. Now, this movie is interesting because it takes place, I believe, in like the 1600s, and you're following a family that's been kind of banished from this colony, and they kind of have to make it out on their own, but they're living in an area where there may or may not be a witch, and creepy things are happening. And just the imagery that the director produces in this movie, very creepy, and just a very creepy movie. Like, it's I will admit, like, movies most often don't really scare me, but sometimes movies can get under my skin a little bit, and this one definitely does. Very creepy, very atmospheric. A lot of weird stuff happens in this movie, but it's worth watching if you're into witches. It's a bit different than your typical witch movie, I'd say. It's really creepy, very good, and yeah, highly recommend it. Number 4 is definitely a classic, and this one often cited as one of the scariest movies of all time, and big blockbuster hit in the 70s, and I'm of course talking about The Exorcist. Now, I will admit that I'm not really like a religious person, so this movie doesn't affect me in that way. For a lot of people, especially back then, like especially for Catholics, like they watch this movie and they just shit their pants, you know? But this movie still got under my skin because it was just basically, if you guys don't know what it's about, because a lot of people probably like know the name, but they don't really know the story. It's essentially about the devil possessing this 12-year-old girl named Reagan, and she kind of slowly starts to unravel and get possessed, and just it's very terrifying to watch all this crazy stuff happening to a 12-year-old actor. And eventually the exorcist has to come and try to take the devil out of her body. And it's very creepy, and it's still worth watching to this day. It was made in the 70s, so it might be a bit slower for today's audiences, but still very worth watching. Tremendous horror movie, and just very, it's scary for the time, but I think also very scary just to watch it to this day. Also, just a lot of iconic horror movie moments happen in this. not for the faint of heart. And number 3 on my list, definitely one of the more disturbing movies that I've ever seen. Like I mentioned, there are some disturbing movies that I just won't watch again just because I don't really want to relive it. But this one just keeps drawing me back in. Like, it is very disturbing, but I love going back to rewatch it. And that would be Hereditary. Definitely one of the newer movies on this list. And I saw this movie in theaters with my dad, I think in like 2018, I think is when it came out. And we were both kind of just speechless after watching this movie. This movie, it's not really scary in the sense where, like, there's a lot of, like, it's hard to make the distinction, but this movie just gets under my skin. It's also just really hard to say what this movie is about without spoiling a lot of stuff. Yeah, I don't even really know what to say about this movie. It's very disturbing and very depressing. I will say that much. It is worth watching. Again, not for the faint of heart. It definitely has some movie moments where your jaw will be on the floor of like, did that really just happen? And this director's not really afraid to like show you exactly what's going on. And it's a fun one to go back and rewatch because it does kind of have a twist ending and it kind of makes you rethink the whole movie. So it is fun to go back and watch because of that, because you'll pick up on a lot of things or you'll see stuff that you might not have noticed at first because the director loves to hide stuff in shadows or in like corners where it's not really the focal point of where the camera's showing, but like you go and look into the corner like, oh, there's somebody like right there. What the hell? You know, it's that kind of creepiness. But overall, this one just really gets under my skin. And it also has a lot of family drama that's just really tense. And just, it can be hard to sit through at times, but it's so good. So if you want kind of a newer, disturbing movie to watch, again, not for the faint of heart, but Hereditary, fantastic. And my number 2 favorite horror movie of all time, I'm sad, I own the movie. I know I own this movie. I don't know where it is, but I'll just have to put up a graphic here. It's The Descent, which I believe is from 2003 or 2005. Somewhere in like the early 2000s. This movie is definitely one of the scariest movies that I've ever seen. And it's a fun one. Fun. It's a fun one because it's kind of a tale of two halves. So the first half, the scares are more because it's about these group of women climbers who go spelunking. I think that's the word. They go cave diving. They go into some caves and they go exploring. So if you're claustrophobic and scared of the dark at all, like any kind of combination of that, that's going to scare the crap out of you. This movie has a lot of really tense moments because of that. And then the second half is also disturbing because it turns into kind of a creature feature where there's these creatures in the caves that are trying to kill everybody. So kind of a tale of two halves of like, if you're scared of that or both, this movie's going to terrify you. And this movie, you know, just has great characters, basically an all-woman cast, which wasn't really necessarily a popular choice back in the 2000s, but fantastic actors and acting. The dialogue's great, but also just the horror elements themselves. Like I mentioned, the first half is definitely more of like, they're in these caves and they're stuck and they got to figure out a way to get out. But then the second half, if that's not scary enough, because this movie is basically just, I'm not going to go cave diving anytime soon. I'll tell you that much. This movie has convinced me of that alone. But then on top of that, they're in the fix of it and there's creatures in the caves that are trying to kill them. It's like, Jesus Christ. But yeah, this movie just packs a punch again and again. I love going back to rewatch this movie. Definitely one of the scariest movies that I've ever seen. And I just love this from start to finish. So number 2 is The Descent. Now, before I jump into my number 1 favorite movie of all time, comment down below if you have any guesses of what it could be. Probably a lot of y'all longtime Stephen King fans probably already know what my number 1 favorite horror movie is of all time. It's actually my number 2 favorite movie of all time. My number 1 is Pulp Fiction, if you guys are curious. But of course, my number 1 favorite horror movie of all time, and I don't really ever see this changing, is The Shining. And again, this is a movie that I watched at a very young age. I was maybe, I don't know, 8 or 9 years old. And my dad just let me watch anything when I was a kid. But this is one of the ones that always kind of just stuck with me and got under my skin. As a kid, I really didn't get scared that often. Like, I would just kind of watch these movies for fun. Like, I don't know what my dad was thinking. Like, oh, he's not getting scared. He's not having nightmares. So I guess I'll just keep letting him watch these. They were just a lot of fun for me. But this one was a bit different. And watching it as a kid, like, it just had, you know, like a very fever dream-ish, like, it felt like a dream in a sense, where like you're watching someone else's dream. And I know, like, going back and watching it now, that's just Stanley Kubrick, like that's just his filmmaking style, especially for this movie. But like, man, if I could be like a fly on the wall of like watching myself watch this movie, I'm just like, I don't know. But this movie, obviously it's based off of the Stephen King book, The Shining. And if you guys don't know what that's about, you're living under a rock. Basically about a guy named Jack Torrance, very happy-go-lucky guy, and the Torrance family going up to the Overlook Hotel to stay there over the winter, and they're going to take care of the hotel while Jack is busy writing his novel. But of course, it's one of the most famous kind of haunted hotel stories of all time, and things don't quite go as well for the family. But yeah, the movie is fantastic. I know Stephen King himself does not like the adaptation because Stanley Kubrick makes a lot of changes and he doesn't like that. But honestly, I prefer the movie to the book, mainly because I grew up watching the movie and then going back to read the book. It didn't hit quite the same, but I think it is definitely one of the creepiest movies of all time. It's definitely my favorite horror movie to go back and rewatch again and again. And like I mentioned, I don't really ever see this changing. It's been my favorite horror movie since I was real little, and I don't really see that changing anytime soon. So, yes, The Shining is my favorite horror movie of all time. All right, so that is my top 10 list, technically top 11, and also just my favorite 31 horror movies of all time. Definitely let me know what you guys thought of my list. Do you agree or disagree with my list? And also, what are some horror movies that I snubbed? Because, you know, I only had 31 slots. There's definitely some more that I could have mentioned. But overall, these are ones that I think I would go back and rewatch the most. And they're the ones that are probably the most influential on my life. But definitely comment down below, what are your favorite horror movies of all time? I'd love to chat with you about it in the comments. So comment down below and we'll chat about it. And of course, if you like this video, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Stay subscribed for more content. I try to post every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And of course, like with this video, every third Thursday of the month, I try to do an off-topic video where it's non-book related. So of course, this time it was for horror movies. In the past, I've actually done favorite Pixar movies, favorite drummers, favorite sitcoms. Also comment down below what are some other off-topic videos you'd like me to talk about. I think another one in the future could possibly be my top 10 favorite rock bands, or just even my top 10 favorite movies in general. You guys probably know The Shining is going to be on that list, but there's some other ones, and I've already given away my number one favorite, so maybe I saved that one from the future so you guys can forget about it. Just comment down below what other off-topic videos you'd like me to discuss on the channel. I've also got the Bookish Termer Discord down below if you want to go support me there. Actually, no, that's for Patreon. I do have my Patreon if you want to go support me there for as little as $1 a month. But Bookish Termer Discord, go sign up for that if you want to be in a very fun bookish community where we've always got tons of buddy reads and read-alongs. Also, my Amazon wishlist if you'd like to buy me a book. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have a fantastic day.